And I wanted to learn about things that were so beyond where I stood, where my feet were planted. At the start of my path, I got a telescope at 9, and that is what drew my want and desire, right, to know about other things and to be in other spaces. Um, Up until this point, my hearing disability had gone undiagnosed. I had gone through special education because I talked extremely loud and ended up with vocal nodules on my throat. And so they taught me how to feel the vibration in my throat to be able to gauge how loud I was talking, and to be able to stop screaming and those kind of things. And the thing was, nobody rechecked my hearing. So my biggest turn point was that my parents divorced at 13. Around that time, I think it may have been like 12 or 13, but my whole life changed at that point. We had gone from being a two-parent household to taking summer vacations to my mother being just living just above the poverty line and barely being able to take care of us. I started college at 16, so I'm a late baby. My birthday is in October. And starting college at 16 was really different. But I did that. And this big loss here was 17. I had joined the Air Force ROTC here, and I wanted to become a pilot, and that was going to be my path to becoming an astronaut. And at 17, I had gone in for my physical. So I was right before I turned 18. It was the fall semester. And they gave me my physical, and my physical showed that I was had a profound hearing loss. And the guy was like, "Well, did you listen to loud music?" I was like, "No." He was like, "Did you have a he wanted to know if I had had maybe, an illness and that created it. And I was like, no. He was like, did you ever have an injury? And I was like, no. He was like, well, I apologize, but you don't qualify. So it was like at that point, my whole life changed. And not having another plan, didn't know what else I was going to do at that point. Well, ladies, I had a tall, dark, and handsome, gorgeous boyfriend who played football with all these rippling muscles. And I went home and I told him of what was happening, and he consoled me, and we kept consoling each other over time, and we got pregnant. And then my father, who's a good Southerner, now I don't know what it is in Ireland, but here in the United States, if you're from the South, if you got pregnant, you got married. And so I dropped out of college and became a wife and mother to beautiful boys. And then 7 years later, we were divorced, and I ended up having a daughter. And my daughter kind of triggered me wanting to go back to school and wanting to be able to take control of my life. So I had been kind of piddling and paddling along for these 7, 8 years with this hearing disability, not really engaging fully in the world or even in my marriage. My husband was in the military at the time, and I remember us going to drop him off at work, and we would have the music on in the car. And I don't hear so clearly when there's background noises or other things. And he said something to me, and I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And not really hearing clearly what I was supposed to be doing. And then later on that day, like 15 minutes before the cleaners closed, he said, did you remember to get my uniform? And I said, what are you talking about? And he was like, I told you this morning. Did you not hear me? And I said, no, I didn't. And he was like, Jesus, this is, your hearing is like really getting in the way of stuff. And so I hurry up. I have to go run and get the uniform. I do get the uniform for him for the next day. But I realized then that I needed to take control of my hearing. So when I went back to college with my 3 kids, including a 2-year-old, my daughter was 2. She hadn't turned 2 yet. So technically they were 1, 7, and 9 when I started school that semester. And 2 months after I started, my daughter turned 2. I ended up finishing with a BS in electrical engineering from Louisiana State University, which absolutely means nothing there for you guys, but it's part of the Southeastern Conference, which is a big football conference. And football, as in football, we carry in our hands and not kick with our feet. I ended up with an electrical engineering degree and a minor in math. And then I had a PhD in material science from the University of Alabama, and I became the first African American to graduate from this program at that time. So I want to talk about how I survived undergrad because that's where my big change and my big differences came, even with my disability. I had to learn to be adaptable. And you don't really understand that kind of in the beginning, but if you've had a disability, adaptability is huge for you because you learn that early on. How to be able to be successful and how to be able to move through the world with your disability, especially if you want others to view you as being able to be there. So the first thing was in undergrad, I took ownership of my disability. And when I say I took ownership of my disability, I went and figured out what was the best way for me to be successful. And I started telling other people, these are the things that I need to be successful. And if you are buying into my success, then you can, you will buy into what I need or my accommodations to be that. I stopped having other people define for me what my accommodations should be, and I started defining those for myself. Some atmospheres I needed no accommodations, others that I did. So during undergrad, I had a note taker. We recorded my lectures for me, and I played them back. But I also did the work away from the classrooms. I spent a lot of time going through my notes, the note taker's notes, and my recordings to make sure that I could grasp the subject and to grasp what I needed from those classes to be able to pass, right? I had strict schedules for me and the kids. It was funny because the first semester I almost flunked out when I went back to school with the kids. The second semester I made some huge adjustments. If it wasn't on my calendar on Sunday, we didn't do it. We didn't add anything into the calendar. I didn't do anything extra. Whatever was on there for the week is what I did for the week. Each semester I started off with a blank space for me. And when I say a blank space, not cleaning up a space in my house because I had 3 kids, there was no blank space. For me, it was clearing out a blank space in my mind. The only thing that started from ground zero, that didn't start from ground zero, was my research. Everything else started from zero. If I made a C from the class from before, I set my goals, and guess what? I didn't think about the C. I thought about what do I need to do different? How do I move forward? How am I going to make this a great semester? I created what I call a happiness list. So I want each of you to create a happiness list as well. Happiness list for me had 10 items on it that made me deliriously happy. Looking for 4-leaf clovers makes me happy. Finding a 4-leaf clover makes me really happy. But that was on the list. My favorite ice cream was on the list. 2 of my favorite songs were on the list. My favorite book was on the list. I always kept a copy of my favorite movie, which was Forrest Gump. It traveled with me when I traveled. It was on my, I had a DVD with it and I carried it with me. And then later it was downloaded on my computer, but it makes me happy. Forest makes me happy, right? I started the semester the same exact way each semester because I'm a little superstitious, guys. So I bought the same notebooks, I bought the same pencils, and if I didn't use them, I donated them out at the end of the semester. But I started the exact same way. The notebooks were all college rule, 3-subject notebooks. Don't ask me why. It was my thing, and I always did it. I created a network to help me with my kids. I created a network to help with me and my work. And then I also created a network outside of school so that we could have variety in our life. We lived on campus at the time in what we called family dorms. And so it was easy to be able to create these dynamics for us to be able to have what we needed while I was in school and then what we needed away from school as well. Well, once I moved into the physics community, I created a network of women and of minorities to be able to help me be able to maneuver and get through and to be successful. People that I could be vulnerable with and transparent with about my disability and about how I needed help in certain environments and places. For me, traveling to a conference, I always needed help because being in the conference, hearing aids have developed like seriously over time, but in the beginning when my hearing aids weren't so great, I would need assistance, like constantly reminding people to face me so that I could see their lips and things like that, right? And then I started early identifying possible sponsors and mentors. Sponsors are people who can help you get into a place that you want to be. And then your mentors are the people who help you mentally survive what you're already in to be able to get to the next level. I often talk about my intersectionality, and I'd like you to think about your intersectionality. So for me, these are the things that make up who I am. These are the things that I feel at my core make me happy, right? I love being a NASA engineer. I'm a physicist. I'm a mentor. I'm a creative. I love speaking about my disability now. I didn't before, but I do now. I love educating people on understanding what it is that I need, and how to make sure that I'm successful and to make sure others are successful as well. And I'm a mom and a grandmom, and those things really mean a lot to me. This is just like a diagram, and I'd like you to think about your intersectionality, and you don't have to talk to me about it, but I want you to start thinking about whether or not you've got 6 things you intersect with, or whether or not you've got 4 things that you intersect with that you feel very strongly about. These are your core values, and how you function as an individual. And these things will help you start moving toward being successful, being able to actually thrive. So my first position at NASA allowed me to work a hardware program when I went back to NASA. So I graduated in 2011, and I started with NASA as a civil servant in 2012. My dissertation was NASA work, and so I worked as a student from 2010 through 2000, and so all of 2010, 2009, I'm sorry, 2010, and then 1 semester in 2011. At NASA as a student, and then I went on to become a civil servant, is what we call it. And you'll see here, they allowed us to put our name on the hardware. So I was able to put my mom's name, my dad's name, my kid's name, and then my sister's name. And then the crazy thing is, I was dating this guy, and I wrote his name on there too. Oh, ladies, don't do that. Because when that hardware came back into the Earth's atmosphere, it burned up, and so did that relationship. Gee. I currently now work on the space launch system, and you'll look in the middle where it says core stage and vehicle avionics. That is the piece of hardware that I actually work on. And I get to oversee the RS-25 main engines being integrated into the core stage. It has been a beautiful ride along the way. For me, it's a real big accomplishment because all of my dissertation work is actually flying on this vehicle. The welds, I actually did some welding. And so the welds that are on this vehicle are actually the ones that I studied in my dissertation. And then all of my work for the last 9 years is encompassed in this particular vehicle. So here you'll see what our core stage looks like fully integrated in the top. Down in the bottom where I'm standing, like, like super badass down there, that picture is of our liquid hydrogen tank, which for us is the largest, what we consider a pressure vessel, actually welded for NASA. It stands about 146 feet tall, somewhere up in there. Here you'll see it's suspended going into our test stand. And then down at the bottom, you'll see our successful test that just ran on the day that I recorded the video. This is what I was out there about to watch. And this ran about 8 minutes and 5 seconds of success. And so for us, that was powering all 4 of our engines and our avionics to get a response and to be able to collect data. My involvement into the physics community, I've served as past president for the National Society of Black Physicists. I was the second woman to hold the office, and the first woman held the office 33 years before me. I've also served on the International Union of Pure and Applied Physics for the Working Group for Women in Physics. I was an associate member in 2010, and then a full member from 2011 to 2017. I've done invited talks in Brazil, South Korea, South Africa, Canada, and the UK. Spin off from that, I've also done talks in Jamaica and in Mexico. So I started a nonprofit organization here called Unapologetically Being Incorporated. We take action to help others find their intersection between their talent and their passion. I believe that if you find that space, you find true happiness. So we do a lot of advocate work here and mentoring with the organization. These are some students that we've actually been mentoring across the board. Each one of them have been growing in their own space, and just really learning to thrive in their space as well. I serve as a speaker. I do diversity and inclusion and equity. I love doing motivational talks. I talk about my dissertation research. I love doing the mentoring talks as well as outreach. The people laugh because I'm all extra when I'm doing this, but I really believe that if you are having fun, your face, your everything should be talking about you having fun. In each one of these situations that you actually see, I've had to make some type of accommodation to where I don't want my disability to overshadow what I'm doing or where I'm at or what I'm doing, right? So my creative space is my fun space. And it's where I've created the books because I want to change what the face of STEM actually looks like. I want kids to understand that any and everybody can do this. My little nephew was born profoundly deaf, and we discovered that very early on for him, like maybe 3 or 4. And he now wears hearing aids, and he's super excited that his aunt wears hearing aids, he wears hearing aids, and she's doing amazing things. And and then he can do amazing things. So it became really important that I change what the face of disability looks like for me, not just STEM, but what the face of disability looks like, because there's so many little kids that look up to me now, and I'm thinking, man, this could really be different. Like, how do we get everybody involved? How do we help others understand that we don't have to, it doesn't have to be like they think it should be. It should be like we know it should actually be. So I've started being a hearing loss advocate. There's 2 articles that I've listed on here that actually talk about me being transparent about my disability. It's the first time that I started speaking up actually about the disability, about it being an invisible disability. So when I did the Hearing Health magazine, they did an interview and just talked about who I was and what I was doing. Well, the difference in the articles that I wrote them from my perspective on what it is to have a disability and to be in the work environment. I talked about the anxiety that's associated with having a disability for me, and the anxiety I'm pretty sure most of us go through in having disability and being able to be functional in the world. I'm constantly worried about, did I hear what you said? Did I get that correctly? Those kind of things. And so I actually talk about that in the Parked in a Parallel Universe article that I did with NASA. I told you, I feel like my greatest accomplishment is being a mother and a grandmother. And so here you see my kids and my grandkids. And the little one down here with the cupcake lives about an hour and a half from me. So you can tell he's got grandma wrapped around his finger. So these are keys for me on how I thrive. And these are things that I'd like you to actually think about in your day to day on how you thrive and how to make those things better, right? So for me, I started off by defining what was most important to me. What's important to my parents, my kids, and other people aren't always what's important to me. So it was more important to me to be able to understand what I needed to be able to truly function in this space, and how I go about getting that was what I defined. I understood that I needed to constantly be adaptable. Not everyone understands your disability. So you being adaptable is actually more in your favor than in their favor, right? I learned to build a network. And so I use this 3333 rule when I'm in public spaces or conferences or talks. I want to make sure I was always connecting with 3 people who I could identify with. And that's me defining, right, how I identify with them. And then 3 people who were doing the type of research I was doing. So when I was at conferences, this really became important. And depending on the size of the conference, if it was a 300-person conference, then I would use the 3 rule. If it was 10,000 people or 2,000 people, I would use a 5 rule or a 6 rule. And all I would do is increase that number, right? So from 3 people to 6 people, or 3 people to 5 people. And then that's what I focused on. You're not always going to build meaningful relationships with everyone. So that's the reason I tell you shoot for these numbers, so that you simply are filing away people in your filing cabinet on who you could be working with, or people that you could be that could be invested in you. So I did 3 people who were doing research I was interested in, and then 3 people who have nothing in common with. And so you want the 3 people you have nothing in common with, so that you can build relationships with people who can critique you from a different angle and a different perspective. So I learned to prioritize my goals, and my goals turn out to be short goals and long goals. So sometimes I've got goals for the day that I just need to get through. Sometimes my day is so hectic that, if I can get through 5 things or 4 things or 3 things, and sometimes they're not all major, right? Sometimes they are, I just need to get through the day. I'm tired. My brain is tired from listening. I'm being in meetings all day. My brain is extremely exhausted. Just trying to make sure I heard what I heard and I processed it correctly, right? So there are days that I think I showed you guys like a picture of my schedule on the takeover. And it showed where there were constant meetings back to back. Well, that's a very exhausting day, to the point where I don't even want to interact with anybody, maybe at the end of the day. And I live with my father right now during COVID. And so for me, sometimes I don't even want to interact with him because I'm so tired at the end of the day, just listening and trying to process that. And people don't understand that always with a disability, that it takes extra mental work to get through the day. And so there's always that extra that you have to put in there that way as well. So I work with a calendar system. So I learned not only to prioritize my goals, set my limits, but I still work with that calendar system, right? So there's one for work and then one for my personal life. Every single thing goes on the calendar for my personal life except work, right? And so if I'm doing some type of outreach or having a talk, that is on there. If I'm going to have a meeting, that is on there. Even blocked off for work, right, is on there. I start work at 6 a.m. I'm usually done by 2:30 my time. So that's about 7:30 your time. I think I got it right. I implemented mandatory self-care for myself, and self-care ranges from a hot bubble bath 1 day a week to I have an inversion table, so doing inversion 3 days, 3 times a day for 3 to 5 minutes. I'm really big on massages, and I've got a massage therapist who works with me, and he does cupping for me. And I also do acupuncture. I'm really big on meditation. I sit outside earth, which is walking barefoot in the earth to be able to draw from the earth's energy. I have a hammock outside, and when the day is beautiful and the sun is shining, I want to get my 15 minutes of sun. For your mental health, you should get 15 minutes in the sun. And so those are all things that I take care of. And then self-care can be even taking a trip to Ireland one day, and enjoying the beauty of Ireland, right? Those are all things that are self-care for me, and they come in different forms, but I do practice it. And I found that it rejuvenates me and it helps me mentally to be able to keep forward. So I've had biases. When you don't know something, you have a tendency to want to just kind of make it what you think it is. And so I do work through my biases on a regular basis to help me keep thriving. I embrace diversity and inclusion. I'm a real big component of equity. I actively still seek out mentors, sponsors, and life coaches. And a life coach is that person who you love to hate. That life coach is the one who's going to keep pushing you, that's going to keep pushing you past your limits to say, you can do this. Like, I get you have this disability, but I need you to keep going. And I want you to keep going because you can do this. So that is something that I'm constantly looking for in my life. And each time that I've reached a new level or achieved a new success, I'm looking for those to say, okay, let's keep pushing me. And when there's days that I wake up and say, you know what, I just don't want to talk to anybody today because my brain is tired from yesterday. My girlfriend will remind me, she's a great life coach. This is not just about you, this is about others. So I want to say to you, this is not just about you, it's about others, because your success translates to there's somebody out there who is waiting for you to be successful so they can be successful as well, right? They're struggling with their disability or struggling with where they are. And when they see you being successful, that too will make them successful as well. For me, I'm big a component on being happy and also focusing on the things that make me happy. Being successful makes me happy. Doing great at my job makes me happy. Planning a trip to Jamaica in October for my birthday, that makes me deliriously happy, right? Jamaica makes me happy. Food makes me happy. So I do focus on food quite a bit. My desire in life is to be happy. I want to say to you, when you find your intersection between your talent and passion, you find your happiness. Right now, I want you to move in your chair. I want you to move with me. I want you to be happy. I want you to understand life. You should be there. All right. So that's my crazy moment. I hope you spent some time grooving in your chair. If you didn't, shame on you. These are my questions. Time for questions and answers. This is my contact information. Write it down. Look at it. You can contact me on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. I'm usually pretty good about answering those. Really easy to remember. Renee Horton, PhD. You can find me. I'm usually pretty good about answering. If you hit me up, I answer at 4:35 in the morning, so some crazy time here. But I'm excited to be here with you and to answer your questions for the next few minutes. So I'm going to stop sharing, maybe. Yep, there we go. And I'm going to open the floor up. There. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That was really good. I think there was a question earlier from Dave just asking about the background you have.
Okay. All right. Let's
see. So a few that were in the chat there.
All right. I'm going. Give me a second. All right.
Yeah.
In the chat, can you tell us about your team's background? My team, as in my work team?
No, I mean the
this thing.
You told us during the presentation that it's exactly.
Okay, so this is my so I move way too much for those virtual backgrounds. So I was finding that when I was talking virtually to people and I'd be moving, you see how how round my little head is, right? And then I'd be moving and stuff and I'd be blending in the background and then my hands would be missing because I'm a waving all over the place person. Well, my background is my science background. Let's see, I'm gonna move the camera right there. So see, it says Science Fun with Dr. H. And during adaptability, I talked about that, right? So during COVID, I could no longer go out to the students. So I had to bring the students to me virtually. And this became my backdrop so the kids could still see me and the character. I was hoping that they would see that we were two people because younger kids have a tendency to think I'm the character and they don't separate me from the character. So I thought maybe if I put it up and they were like, oh, look at you with your picture. And I was like, that didn't work. So that's what the background is. I started doing paint activities during COVID with the kids. So started doing a little STEAM in there and we would paint the cover of the book. So I'd mail out a kit to all of these kids and then we'd get on Zoom together and then we'd paint. You'd never realize just how relaxing painting could actually be. So that's what the background is. All right. All right. So just letting everyone know this event. All right. Within the network of women and other minorities you set up, what was the most helpful kind of support that supplied you with, or was that something more you wish the group could have done going forward and everything? So I always talk about these networks, right? And now they function as a tribe for me. With that tribe mentality that they're constantly pouring into me and I'm allowed to pour into them. But with these women and other minorities, it really was about being able to survive. I would be a liar if I said to you, physics is easy, just go do it. That's not true. It's really hard, but it's worth everything. to be able to be successful in it. And so when I was going to these physics conference, I was constantly putting together these networks of people who would say, look, I had this problem too. So a lot of times you think you're struggling and you're the only person with that problem. Well, you're not. Somebody else has had that problem. I guarantee you, you could send me a problem and I could find someone who's had that problem. And so this network provided me with that. I can't say that there was something that they missed, because we would expand the network. And the beauty about networks is, right, I'm part of your network, which means that you have access to my network, right? And so I would say, hey, Tara, I'm having a problem with this. And Tara would say, well, you know, I've never really done that, or I don't know anything about that, but I know Emily who does. Let me put you in touch with Emily. So that's what that network was about, especially when I was in school. So I'm really big on building that network and trying to make it as diverse as you can, because you never know who has the answer to your problem or to something you're struggling with, right? Sometimes it really just takes a matter of being able to talk to someone who has experienced that, and that makes a difference. All right, keep going. Do you have anyone in particular that inspires you? Yes. You know, it's really weird because I'm living with my dad now. And when you see your parents as a child, you see them one way. And then when you become an adult and you start experiencing things that you experienced as a child, but now on the other side of the coin, right? I really am inspired by my father, just to think of all the things that he went through and all the things that he overcame to be able to even provide me the life that I had. Katherine Johnson, which is from Hidden Figures. I don't know if that movie was really big in Ireland or not, but she is a huge inspiration, and I got to meet her personally before she passed away. Mae Jemison inspires me. She was the first Black woman to go into space. And I'm just like blown away because I got to meet her in South Africa and work with an outreach project with her. And believe it or not, I'm always inspired by your generation. Your generation is like doing stuff and making things happen and making an impact. And some of you don't even know how great you are just yet. And so I'm always really excited to be able to plant just a little bitty seed and then be able to pour just a little water on what's inside of you already, because you guys are about to freaking shake up the world. And you're just kind of sitting there like, yeah, when it happens, it's going to happen. So I am really, really inspired by your generation, at the things that you make happen and the way you make things, how you're changing things. All right, so have you noticed in particular positive changes in physics over the last few years in terms of diversity, making accommodations for workers who deal with the disabilities in the physics and STEM field? I'll tell you, yes and no. Physics has a way of driving women out of it. So I'm going to say, for all my women that are on this call, stay. Make them look at you. Make them let you sit at the table. Don't run anywhere. Teach those white men that you belong here. Sorry, David. But that you belong here and that you're not going away, right? And the reason I say that is because they still run us away, all of us, away from physics. And it's like, you know what? I could go do something else and it's not going to even matter. Because guess what? You can get a physics degree and go work in engineering. And guess what? They're all embracing you like, come over here, Sarah, bring your talent to me. I want it. Like, I know you're super smart because you're a physicist, right? And you can do this engineering work. And don't let them run you away, right? Being president was a hard thing because I went from speaking me to speaking for a whole organization. And so that was really, really tough. And I had to learn to censor what I was saying and censor what I was doing, because I was now speaking for a whole organization of 300 plus people. Well, during that, I was able to truly understand where everybody else was coming from, right? And that's the reason I now speak out about my disability, because I realized so many of us are not, right? We want to be perceived as normal. Well, this is your normality, right? You're not abnormal. This is your normality. And so realized when I started speaking out and wanting to change that, it was helping everybody else. I'm hoping I'm doing some good. And maybe in the next 5 years, we'll really see a big change. Because it was one of the physics journals that printed my article about my disability, right? And being in that space. So, all right. What are you working on currently? Oh, I'm so glad you asked me that. So not only am I working on this rocket, right, which is super cool, right, because we're going to go the furthest we've ever gone. It's the most powerful thing that's going to be in the world. I know I'm just like super animated today because I'm just like super happy today. Like all my energy is flowing. I'm very positive. So you guys are getting it full scale right now. But I'm working on a new character in a new book. And this book and this character is actually going through multiple universes, and she's discovering new planets and new people and beings and creatures. And so every time I work in the book to be able to start doing the storyboards, I'm all souped up, happy. So last night I was working on it, and so now you're getting that energy. And that character is Oshan. So that was the character at the beginning of my slides that's sitting there meditating, and they've kind of made her anime. So I've changed, and I'm kind of anime-ish. Which it took me a while to adjust to that, because you see this bobblehead, like this bobblehead character took me a while too. I was like, man, my head is big, but it's not really that big, like this guy. But in the new character, it's kind of anime-ish. And so I'm understanding, like my son is 30, so that generation is really into that. And so the illustrator that I'm working with, that was her choice of style, and I gave into it, and I'm really, really geeked up like all the time about the pictures. And it's a longer book. It's short enough, for you guys to pick it up, enjoy it, and, keep enjoying it. But it's just long enough not to be like the children's books that I actually read now. All right. What in your experience has been one of the most important things that able students, coworkers can do to support a disabled peer? Listen to what I'm telling you I need. Don't tell me what you think I need. Listen to what I say that I need and give me that. If you can give me that, you're putting me on the same playing field, and now we can play football together. There's a deaf kid who plays football, right? And he ran track, and I remember him with my daughter, and I kept saying, how does he play football? And then I realized they were giving him what he needed, right? The plays were on his arm, and when they talked to him, he looked at them, they looked at him, he was reading lips. It was amazing to see him flourish in that space, right? And I kept saying, does he know when to take off? And then I realized, right, he's looking at the flag. He's not listening for the gun. He's looking at the flag. This kid was good. And what I realized was they were giving him what he needed. They were putting him on the same playing field as everybody else, the same equal playing field, right? They were giving him his equity, and he was able to thrive. So for everybody out there, don't think you know what I need. Listen to what I need. If you could go back in time and tell yourself something, what would it be and why? Okay, don't get upset with me, but my favorite line is to use birth control. I wouldn't have got pregnant so early. So if I could go back and tell my 15-year-old self, I tell my 15-year-old self that at 17 and 18, you need to be on some type of birth control, because it's going to definitely change your life. I absolutely love my kids, though. My 30-year-old is a chef. My 28-year-old works in a factory and he's the one with my grandkids. And my 23-year-old is the one who gets on my last ever-loving nerve. She's actually about to turn 23 this Saturday. She's got a whole list of things that I'm supposed to keep buying. But with that child, she's the one, maybe I should also tell myself to stop after 2, but don't tell her I said. All right. Could you please explain why you sought out your mentor and how they were able to improve your career? So my mentors were people who helped me learn to navigate, right? As scientists and engineers, we're not always so good with the people part of it. And so my mentors helped me become more of a people person, and how to work with my research and how to present my research. So if you can become extremely effective at presenting your research to a 5th grader, right? Or to someone who knows absolutely nothing about it, you can become a people person. Because in that, Think about how happy your research makes you, or whatever that topic is, and then making sure that person understands it. So my mentors were very different people at very, very different stages of my life, and different stages of my career. My mentor for my dissertation ended up being my mentor also at NASA, because he worked at NASA. And so he was able to help me migrate through NASA. And he was a white male, looked nothing like me, but he was extremely supportive of who I am and what I was bringing to the table. And he believed in my talents. Mentors are people who believe in you. Mentors are people who will help you get it out of you when you don't think you have it in you anymore. From that. Mentors are people you have very personal relationships with as well. What's the most challenging project you've worked on so far? I want to say that it's definitely core stage. You saw it. It is extremely extremely complicated, and it's extremely just the integration into it has been a lot, but it's also about the personalities and the politics that we have to work on it as well. It's the most difficult thing I've worked on, and definitely by far the most rewarding thing I've actually worked on. Can you talk more in detail about how you help your mentees? What are the most important helps you can provide? We help our mentees thrive. I spent a long time in survival mode, and we want to help you get out of survival mode and learn how to thrive. One of the things I learned during COVID was a lot of students didn't know how to adapt. They focused solely on, I need to be in the classroom. This is what I need. And then we're like, but you can't go there. Okay. You can't go there. We need to help you adapt to what you can. So I spent a lot of 2020 explaining to my students that I went through that same freaked out moment for 3 months, 90 days of, oh my God, I need to go to work. I can't work here. I can't be here. Okay, I can do this. This is okay. What do I need to do to make the change? How do I make the change? What's going to be best, in that? So we spent 2020 helping our students adapt and understanding and accepting they had no control over COVID, right? And because you don't have control over it, you better get control over something that you do. So we did a lot of that with my mentees. We've gone into people's universities. Because I don't do academia and I don't do grant writing, I don't care, if I scare you. So I go into people's universities and talk to people's deans and their professors like, hey, you're not doing a good job at this. You've got some people and we want to help you be better, right? So what can we do about that? We do a lot of traveling and talking about diversity and inclusion as well from the organization and from our perspective in doing that. So those are the things we help. We give our mentees one-on-one time, right? You guys can literally schedule an appointment and talk to us, me or any of the other folks that you need. If you're talking about something and I go, hey, I can't help you with that, but I know somebody who can, right? We do that. So that's what you get as our mentees. That's what you get from us. How do you find balance in your family life and working your PhD? That calendar, right? I actually wrote in self-care on the calendar, right? That was programmed into the calendar when I was working on my PhD. And if it said I was going to be doing something for 2 hours for self-care, I didn't have to define what it was, but that was my big balance. Right now, how I balance like the job and everything else, like there are set hours that is the job. 6 to 2:30, 6 to 3:30, that time frame is the job. Dr. H comes either before that or after that. I'm up in the morning at 4:30 or 5 o'clock. If I work out, I work out. I'm not really big on working out, so I'm not going to make you think that I'm up here all working out and stuff, because that ain't always happening. I have a treadmill in my bedroom. It says to me every single morning, Renee, you really should get out of the bed and get on me. And I go, sure, I'm going to get on you today. I haven't been on it in 3 months. Go figure, right? But I try really hard to make sure that the things that need to be done, like I'm very cognitive of things that happen. I'm looking at the time. I'm getting my COVID shot today. So I'm very cognitive of the time of when things need to be done, right? So I'm working on the 2 books right now, and we know we want to release in September. Well, we back that up. Like, this is the day it has to go to the printers to get the first copy for us to be able to do, that. So that date is stuck somewhere, so that I'm always looking at that, right? Like, you have to have this done by this date. And so that's what I'm working towards. So that's how I actually balance. I take off 1 week from work every quarter or so, and I work on other things like Dr. H and that kind of thing. I'll pull my team together sometimes, and I'll say, hey guys, we need to create 32 advertisements or 32 things that are going to post on social media. And then that team works on that, and they dump all of that to me during that 1 week that I've actually taken off, right? And then that's how we plan around that. That stuff goes in a folder. I have folders everywhere, guys, that are marked with all of these things that are going to happen or that I need to take care of, right? And so I can look at a folder and say, oh, that's right, we were working toward April 28th. And these were the things that we were supposed to complete for April 28th. And then as we complete them, we dump them in there. And then now they're all ready by April 28th. So that's how I'm right now controlling my crazy life. All right. What was your first win that made you confident that you were doing the right thing and brought you out of survival mode? Oh, that's a big one. Oh, that's a good one, Tara. I want to say, I remember when I was about to, we were integrating the vehicle, and I realized that I was no longer in survival mode when I had learned to compartmentalize what was happening at work. And then on the drive home, I was decompressing. And then I'd walk into the door, and then my daughter was there. And then I could focus on her. And my daughter's a chatter, right? Chat, 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 chat. Her mouth doesn't stop. It's like, and there would be a part of me like, shut up. I need 15 minutes. But I realized I was no longer in survival mode for me when I was able to go to work, do this very stressful job, get in my car, drive the 20 minutes home, decompress, walk through I no longer needed to sit in my driveway. I could walk in my door and literally be there for my daughter and have her give me what she needed to be able to give me. And then we'd go about cooking dinner or buying dinner. And it was that moment that I realized I no longer was drowning, right? That I was sitting in a boat on a lake, on a very calm lake, and I was no longer in survival mode. Okay, I think I got all the questions.
I think there's one more from Aisling. Her hand is up. I'm not sure if she has a question or not.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't put this in the chat, but you mentioned that you like looking for 4-leaf clovers, and I have one which I found a few years ago, which hopefully would bring you some good luck as a thank you. So there it is.
So yes. Okay, so I have to tell you my quick story about the 4-leaf clovers. So everybody knows my fascination with these 4-leaf clovers. And so my very beautiful physics friend called me and said one day, I just want to let you know about these 4-leaf clovers. You do know that they are a mutation. And then sometime you can get 5-leaf clovers too. But they're supposed to be 3-leaf clovers. And a 4-leaf clover is a mutation, which probably means that there's radiation in the ground. And I was thinking to myself, shut the hell up. I was like, why would you tell me that? I don't care if it's mutated or not. And she says, oh dear. She says, are you having any luck? And I said, no, I'm not having any luck yet. So I would think that that would mean that the ground that I'm standing on is not full of radiation. And she says, well, let me help train your brain. So she goes out and she finds these 4-leaf clovers for me, and she laminates them and she sends them to me. This is a physicist, guys. And she says, I think if you study these 4-leaf clovers, you'll be able to find 4-leaf clovers. So she sent me 6 of them, and I studied them, and guess what? I was able to find 4-leaf clovers after that. So your physicist friends will screw up all of your happiness lists, Ashley. They will. But they love them. I love them. I love my physicist friends because they send me 4-leaf clovers. That is a very beautiful 4-leaf clover. And I'm glad you enjoy it as much as I do. I don't have anything else, and I'm finishing on time, which is a great thing. Do you guys have any last minute anythings?
I think I just want to say thank you. That was a really, really great talk. It was so nice to hear about all your stories and like anecdotes as well. Like there's a message in the chat there as well from Lee. But yeah, I just want to thank you so much for coming. It was such a great talk, and your Instagram takeover the other day, it was really inspirational and everything. So yeah, good luck with your COVID chat. I hope it goes okay for you. And yeah, just thank you so much. Yeah, we really appreciate you coming to speak for us today with EPONA.
Well, thank you guys for being here with me in the evening time. I'm excited that you stuck around with me, but I'm going to get out of here and go get my COVID shot now. But thank you guys.